out in 2001, I think. The movie came out in 2004, and it created a big controversy all over it. And here I have some footage of the movie. And well, like she said, my whole point of making these presentations is to pretty much tell you what is wrong with all these movies, because people tend to believe a lot of these stuff just by looking at the movies without further reading or researching it. So, like I mentioned before, it's a pretty risky thing to go about history like this. And out of all the movies, not only the ones I've shown you, but like pretty much any historical movie out there, I would say this is the most dangerous one, I would say. So to get started, of course, the Da Vinci Code, the movie was based on a book.
That's right there, a novel.
Yes, a novel. And well, actually, we'll talk about that later,
Okay.
because it is a novel, supposed to be a novel, and it's based on this book by Dan Brown. He's the author of the book, and it was made into a movie. And Dan Brown is he's a very curious guy. I'm not going to go a whole lot into his biography, but the important thing to know about Dan Brown is that he pretty much, we don't know if he believes the stuff that he wrote about or not. We don't know pretty much what his thoughts on it are, his personal preferences, but I would say from what I read and all the research that I did, that it's all about sales. He wrote a conspiracy that created a lot of controversy, and then he made a controversy out of the controversy. So he just, that tells you that pretty much it's all about sales. And you know that because this is not the first book that he wrote. He actually wrote 3 other novels before the Da Vinci Code, and I mean they had like medium success. They sold about 5,000 to 10,000 copies each, which is not bad at all. But then the Da Vinci Code comes out and he sells 10 million copies at the beginning. Now I think it's over 50 million copies that the book has sold. So it was just an outrage. It was just an explosion of this controversy. So
Wow, 50 million books?
Yeah, 50 million copies sold all over the world, and of course it's one of the best sellers in history. I think it's just behind the Harry Potter books. So it was all about promoting it and making the controversy, and in the end I'll tell you why it was so successful. I actually have a slide dedicated to why.
Now we see why you stopped it.
Yeah, why it was so successful. So I mean, I want to ask you, who saw this movie? Most people. Okay. Well, if you didn't see it, I'm just going to give you a brief summary of the plot, so you know what it is about and why is it so controversial. So here at the top left, you have, well, everything actually starts down here. This is, of course, that is Tom Hanks, the actor, and he's playing the role of Robert Langton, a professor of religious symbology at Harvard University. And actually, from what I read, there's no such thing as Harvard University. So that's the makeup thing. But so of course that's his role, and in the movie he is in Paris giving a conference about religious symbols, and that is what he's doing right here. And at the same time, well, that day he was supposed to meet with one of the curators of the Louvre Museum in Paris also, which is the guy named Jacques Sonnier, and he's actually the guy at the top that you see there, the top left corner. And Jacques Sonnier, that is the very first scene of the movie. He's shown running around the Louvre. He's being chased by this monk who's trying to kill him. And that is another error of the movie, because the monk is claimed to be part of the Opus Dei, the religious order, but the Opus Dei has no monks. That's not part of the organization, so he couldn't have possibly been a monk or Opus Dei, either one. So that's one of the errors of the beginning of the movie. And the reason why he's chasing him is because he wants him to confess something, and eventually he catches him up, and Sonnier reveals the secret, what's supposed to be the secret, and then this guy, the monk Sila, that's his name, he shoots him. And so after he shoots him in the belly, and so he has pretty much, I would say, around 20 minutes to leave all these clues around the Louvre so his secret is kept alive. And so in 20 minutes he goes around some of the most famous paintings, and he writes all these coded messages, and in the end the last thing he does is that he takes his clothes off and he draws this pentagon on his chest with his own blood. And of course you recognize this as it is similar to Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, which we'll talk about later. And
So when was this Louvre thing supposed to have happened?
this was supposed to happen in 2004.
Oh, that was like...
Yeah, I mean, the actual novel takes place in modern day, so
Right.
so this is supposed to be happening or happen. So the police, of course, comes into the scene, and they call Robert Langdon for two reasons. Because, like I mentioned, he was supposed to meet with him that day, so that makes him an immediate suspect of the murder. And second, because of his expertise, the police officer, his name is Foch, he's the captain of the police department. He wants him to tell him about the symbols and all these ciphers and everything that is around this man to try to find out more about the case. But really what he's trying to do is he's just trying to arrest Langdon because he's convinced that he is the one who's guilty. So before he's arrested, another woman comes into the scene. Her name is Sophie Neveu, and she's a cryptologist also from the police department. And she reveals what the intentions of the captain are. She reveals that to Langdon, and so she helps him escape because the man Jacksonier was her grandfather. So she thinks that the secret, that Langdon might know the secret that her grandfather was trying to tell her. So they escape from the museum and they start a chase all over France. All over Paris. Then they go to London and they end up in Scotland at the end of the movie. And along the way is where all these other things branch off from the main topic. And you see here, right to the picture, we have the Holy Grail. Up top of that is the symbol of the Prior of Sion. Then down there we have Mary Magdalene at the corner, and on top of her that is the symbol of the Templar, the Knights Templar, which I'm sure you've heard about. So all of these things, along with other things like you have the Inquisition involved, you have the Merovingian kings, you have the Crusades, you have all these sort of historical events involved somehow, in some way, with the main plot. So it's really interesting. It is a very, very good read, but it's inaccurate. So that's the basic plot of the movie. So you're basically familiar with it. So before we start, I'm going to give you just a very quick background on it. And like I said, it all takes place in Paris first. Here's the map. There's Paris in France, and it all starts in the Louvre. You see it over there, a picture of it. Probably the most famous museum in the world. And the pyramid, which was built by the Chinese-American architect. I don't remember his name, but it was added several years later. And at first they didn't like it. They said there was a scar in the face of Paris. But today everybody loves it, and they just hang around the pyramid very often. And now this is, of course, Leonardo, which is, I wanted to talk about him because the movie has his name. And Leonardo, well, we call him Leonardo da Vinci, but da Vinci is not his name. And back in these days, I would say your official name would be composed of your first name and the place from where you were born. So Da Vinci is the city where Leonardo was born. It's in northern Italy. So that's why his name is Leonardo da Vinci. We know him as that, but his actual name was Leonardo di Ser Piero. That was the name. We just know him as Da Vinci because that's where he was born. And the reason why the book and the movie have his name is because many of his works are the ones that are used as clues for devices that lead Robert Langdon and Sophie Neveu to decipher the message that Saunier wanted them to know. So, and they use many of the works of Leonardo. And here I have one of those, of course, his most famous painting and the most famous portrait in history, the Mona Lisa. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it, but all you have to know is that this painting, this portrait it's so famous because it was a breakthrough in art history. Before the Mona Lisa was painted in 1503, you will never see some of the characteristics that it has. The hands, the sfumato, which is a technique which he was painted, the eyes, the so controversial smile that she had, even the doubt whether it's a woman or a man. All of that it was just a breakthrough. It had never been seen before. Leonardo did this, and also the study of perspective that you get in the background, the whole atmospheric perspective that Leonardo had, mainly because of his studies. Leonardo is considered probably one of the biggest genius in the history of science. He was a painter and a sculptor, a biologist, an engineer. She made studies of anatomy, astrology, philosophy. He pretty much knew everything. He could do anything. He was just a genius. And this is another one of his. This is basically his most famous sketch, the Vitruvian Man. And of course, this is not a painting by itself. It's a sketch because of one of his studies. The purpose of this is it was a study of perspective, and not perspective. I mean, a study of proportion of the human body. And I mean, if you go and read about it, there are modern scientists and art historians have made come to a whole lot of conclusions about this sketch. That's why you have a circle around it, and then so maybe it's a square, maybe it's a rectangle. We don't know. But it was just all a study of human proportion that Leonardo was making as part of his studies. He took notes about everything. It's supposed to. I think the numbers that he wrote about 50,000 words in his notes, just of all the studies that he made. And we actually have most of those still today. And one thing you want to know about Leonardo is that he had all these projects. He wanted to research. He wanted to know so much that he started a lot of projects, but he only finished around a dozen of them. Most of his works are incomplete, and so that is one of the reasons why the notes are really valuable, because the works are not completed, so the notes tell us what he was intending to do if he had actually completed the project. And on the right we have the Madonna on the Rocks, the earlier version. If you ever took an art history class, you would know that there are two versions of the Madonna on the Rocks. And this is, I mean, I just put it up here because this is the painting behind which they find the key in the museum that would lead them to a Swiss account that has the cryptex, the little device where the secret is supposed to be hidden inside, the location of the secret. So, I mean, again, it's one of Leonardo's paintings, and a version of it was done a few years later. This is in the Louvre, of course. And the last thing that I want to say about Leonardo is that another of the most famous things that he's known for is his writing. We know that he used mirror writing, which is the technique in which you write symmetrically, and you can only read it with a mirror. Technically, if you train yourself, of course, you can just read it right out of your eyes. You don't need a mirror. But I mean, and the important thing about this is that a lot of people.
Everything that way?
Yeah. Well, most of his writing. Some of them are straight, but a lot of them are in this way. And the important thing to know about this is that of course this serves perfectly for a conspiracy theory, saying that these writings were done in such a way that nobody else could read them. But I mean, if you think about it, it's not that hard to pick up a mirror and just read it backwards, and even the trained eye could just read it. So I mean, it was not really, and Leonardo didn't intend that. He really wanted people to know what his ideas were, because what purpose does it serve to be a genius if people don't know about it? So there was really no point in hiding his ideas, his thoughts, his studies. So actually, the most accepted theory about this is that he wrote in this way to avoid making a mess in his notes, because Leonardo was left-handed. So if you write from left to right, your hand will be behind the letters that you write, and the ink will just mess it up. So if you write from right to left, then you don't have that problem. So that is the theory that they say he used to do this. A very creative thing, again, showing his genius. So I mean, that's just an important thing to know, that there's no such thing as him trying to hide any of this information. It was just a practical thing, I guess. And now, so that's background information I want to give you. And now jumping right into the movie, I wanted to, I mean, it was very difficult to really know how to address the movie because there are so many things going around at the same time, and everything is related to everything. There are all of this coincidences going around that it's very hard to know where to start. So I just decided to stick with the main theme of the movie, the whole thing in which everything just goes around, and that is the secret that Jacksonier that he kept and was trying to pass down to his granddaughter Sophie. And this is a secret that not only did he know the secret, but it's supposed to be a church a secret that the church has been hiding for 20 centuries, and it's supposed to be a secret that is so powerful that if it is discovered, it would pretty much put at jeopardy the foundation of the church, and the faith of the people would be in jeopardy too. So it was a secret that the church was very closely keeping an eye on.
When you say church, you mean the Catholic Church?
Yeah, the Catholic Church. And the secret is that what we know as the Holy Grail, the famous cup, was not actually a cup. The secret, according to this, is that the Holy Grail refers to two things. The first one is a bloodline from Jesus Christ with Mary Magdalene, and the second one is that Mary Magdalene is actually the Grail itself. It's not a cup. The cup is just an allusion to Mary Magdalene, and I'm going to explain to you how they get to this conclusion, because it's. I mean, if you never read about it, I mean, everybody has heard about the Holy Grail, about Mary Magdalene, about Jesus, but you never really know. Most people haven't been deep into all these studies. So when they present you this evidence that apparently is very well supported, you can very easily be misguided by it, and that's really what I'm going to try to show you here. So this is the secret that the movie is all about. Everything goes around the secret that Mary Magdalene actually married Jesus. They had a child named Sarah, and this child had a bloodline which came actually up all the way to present day. And in the end of the movie, you'll find out that the girl, the granddaughter Sophie Neveu, is actually supposed to be one of the last living descendants of Jesus Christ. So that supposedly is the secret that the church is trying to hide. And everything just branches off from that. Everything in the movie, all that I mentioned before, the Holy Grail, the Templars, the Crusades, the Inquisition, all of that comes because of this secret and the protection of it. So first, I want to discuss how do they make these secret look like it's real. And for that, Dan Brown actually used evidence that has been around for a good while. All of this is Dan Brown pretty much. All he did was put together all the theories and works that had been present before. He really didn't come up with any original ideas about this. And I'll tell you in the next slide where he get it from. And so this is the first thing that I want to talk about. So for there to be a bloodline, of course, there has to be a succession of parents who have a child, and then the child gets married, and so on and so forth. So the first thing that you need for there to be a bloodline is a marriage. And that's one of the things that they explain in the movie, how Mary Magdalene was supposed to marry Jesus. And the evidence that Brown gives to support the argument comes from the Gospel of Philip. Now, if you're familiar with the Bible, there's no such thing as the Gospel of Philip. There are only four Gospels in the Bible, the ones from Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Right? So the one from Philip is actually but there is a Gospel of Philip, such as there is a Gospel of Thomas, and such as there are 80 other Gospels which were not included in the Bible. And which Gospels were included, that decision was made at ecumenic councils. It was basically a gathering of all the bishops from all over the Catholic churches in the world, and they would vote and discuss and decide over which books and which Gospels should be included in the Bible. And that's how we get the 47 books that are in the Bible today. The reasons why these Gospels and other documents were left out, there are various reasons. I know that, for example, the Gospel of Philip was left out because it was incomplete. We don't have all the complete gospel, and even the few pages that we have, some of them are torn apart by the middle. They have holes in them, so we don't have the whole gospel. So it wasn't included because of that. Now, the one thing that you get from this, like I said, is the marriage between Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And the line that Brown uses is that at the top it says, "The companion of the Savior is Mary Magdalene." And then Lee Teabing, which is the British royal historian in the movie that is explaining this to Sophie Neveu and Robert Langdon, says, any Aramaic scholar will tell you the word companion in those days literally meant spouse. And if you look at this, it might make some sense, and it gets you thinking. Because nobody here speaks Aramaic, and so you really haven't gone into the meaning of the word. You probably didn't even know what language they were written in. So it's very easily to be misled by this, and it looks like solid evidence. There's nothing crazy about that statement. So you might actually believe that companion meant spouse, and so you would say, well, yeah, man, the gospel says that Mary Magdalene was Jesus Christ's wife. But the fact is that she was not, and it's all because of that second statement, because the Gospel of Philip was written in the 2nd century AD, but it was not written in Aramaic. It was written in a language known as Coptic, which is I would say, the final evolution of Egyptian language. So if you go over any Aramaic language, there you will not find anywhere where companion means spouse. Companion literally means companion, friend, a close relative, but not spouse. And even the Catholic Church has officially admitted that Mary Magdalene was indeed very close to Jesus, but she was not his wife. It was just more like a sort of a spiritual relationship rather than even sexual relationship with Jesus, which would imply that having a kid. So now moving on to that pretty much debunks the myth of them being married. And now the myth about the child, it's actually pretty recent. It dates from 1982, 29 years ago, and it comes from this book. The book is called The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail by Michael Behan and there's 2 other authors. And this is actually the book from which Dan Brown got most of his ideas. And he even had to face 2 lawsuits for plagiarism. And somehow they were unsuccessful, and he got away with this story. And there you have the Da Vinci Code. But most of his ideas were taken from this book. And the ones there on the right are I summarized the ideas of this book. You have there at the top says the prior sign protects Merovingian dynasty because they are the lineal descendants of the historical Jesus and his alleged wife, Mary Magdalene, traced further back to King David. It's exactly the same thing that the Da Vinci Code shows. Same with the second one. The legendary Holy Grail simultaneously the womb of Saint Mary Magdalene and the sacred royal bloodline she gave birth to. So the same thing that I mentioned to you. The Holy Grail is not a cup. It's supposed to be Mary Magdalene herself and the bloodline that she gave birth to. This idea was already in 1982 being written here, and this is actually the only evidence. This is the first time that the child Sarah comes up in literature. You would think that this traces back to the 2nd, the 3rd, or maybe the 6th century, when most of these the gospel they're called the Gnostic Gospels, which are the ones that were found. You would think that it dates back then, but no, it's just 29 years ago that this theory came around. And the last one, the same thing, and I will talk about that one a little bit later. It says the church tried to kill off all remnants of this bloodline and their supposed guardians, the Cathars and the Templars, in order for popes to hold the episcopal throne through the apostolic succession of Peter without fear of it ever being usurped by an anti-pope from the hereditary succession of Mary Magdalene. What that is trying to say is that the church feared that the real descendant of Jesus would come up and would take pretty much power over the church. So they were hunting them down, as well as their guardians, to get rid of all the evidence that there is a bloodline of Jesus Christ, so the popes can continue their apostolic succession since the times of Peter. And that is the whole purpose in the movie. That is the whole purpose that the monk has. That is why he's trying to get the information out of the guy of Sunier, because he wants to locate the Holy Grail, which is not the cup, it's Mary Magdalene. So he wants to find the sarcophagus of Mary Magdalene. So he can, once he has the sarcophagus, they try to, Yafuse wants to destroy it. Because if you destroy that, that is the only evidence to prove a bloodline. Because if such an heir ever comes up, there's no way to prove it, because the only way to prove it would be with DNA testing. But if the sarcophagus is gone, then there's no way to prove a bloodline. So that is what they want to do. They want to find the sarcophagus, to destroy it, so a bloodline can never be proved. So that's the whole plot, and it's exactly the same plot from this book as the one you see in the Holy Grail. So pretty much he stole the idea. Like I said, I don't know how.
Is that a novel?
Yeah, it's also a novel. He got away with the 2 lawsuits somehow. I really didn't look at the cases, but it wasn't his one.
I read both of the books. There was like a lot of similarities, but the plot in that book was almost completely different than the plot in the book. That's probably how he got away with the lawsuits. Because there were similar things like the Holy Grail and the bloodline and stuff, but that was really the only thing that was similar as far as the plot.
I didn't read that book, but the main theme, he basically took the stories and just built around it with other stories. So I guess you could still blame him for plagiarism, but like you said, maybe that's why I really haven't read it. But yeah, that's probably why. And so now here we have this painting. We all seen it, The Last Supper from Da Vinci as well. And this is I put this up here because this is the painting from where, according to the movie, you get the relationship of Mary Magdalene with the Holy Grail. This is where it comes from. And this is at a church in Italy, and this one is not a fresco, unlike the movie. The movie says it was a fresco, but the proof that it's not, it's a canvas. Actually, it was painted on canvas. And the reason why Da Vinci did this was because, like I said, he used to have a lot of projects, so he didn't really have the time to work on this from the beginning to the end. And if you work on a mural, that implies that you have to paint on wet plaster. And if you take weeks and weeks to do it, the plaster will dry and your painting will be messed up. So that's why he decided to work on canvas, so he could take all the time that he needed to complete this project. It is hung on a wall, it is, but it's not a mural. It's an actual painting on canvas. And actually, just a side note, the one that what you see at the bottom, sort of a doorway, it was actually a doorway, because I think the main priest that lived in this church, behind the wall where this is, it's a hallway to the nave of the church, to the main place of the church. So he wanted to pretty much have direct access to it instead of going around the whole church. So that's why he had the door put on the wall, and they had to pretty much go over the painting to do it. It's now sealed, of course, not a door anymore. Restorations have been made, but just his laziness was what put that in the painting. And so the painting here, I'm going to show you here it is. This is Jesus Christ, of course, in the middle. The other ones are the 12 disciples. And the thing the first thing you want to know about this painting is that the name is not exactly the most appropriate one. We know it's the Last Supper, but this painting doesn't depict the Last Supper, the very time when they eat the bread and drink the wine. It depicts the moment where Jesus tells them that one of the disciples is going to betray him. So that's why you see all the reactions, all the whispering over there on the right side. This guy over here is kind of surprised with the hands. So this is the moment where Jesus tells them one of them is going to betray him, not the actual supper. And that is also one of the theories why they suggest that there's no chalice here in the middle of Jesus Christ. There's no Holy Grail, and that's one of the theories that Dan Brown uses to explain that the Holy Grail is not a cup. If it's not here, then it probably wasn't back there. So well, the Mary Magdalene is supposed to be in this painting, and you never notice this thing because when you look at it, you really don't pay close attention. But she's supposed to be the woman sitting next to Jesus, right there at the right of Jesus, the place of honor. And if you look at her face, she does look, well, he does look like a woman. You know, this very light skin, and then you have the very sharp edges of her face, and you have this very young look, and above all, you have the long hair. So if you look at it, it does look like she is like it is a woman, and of course, if in any case, it would be Mary Magdalene. But
no beard. Yeah, that one was broken.
The what?
The dude with the that was
Oh yeah.
no, that one was standing up.
Oh, this one?
That guy. Yeah. Although I guess that's a beard.
But actually, we do have evidence of this because Leonardo, like I said, he made notes of everything that he worked on, and we actually have the list, and where he talks about this painting, and he lists all the disciples that he was painting in order from left to right. And when we get to the one next to Jesus, in Leonardo's list, he is named as John. That is John you see right there. So that is a proof that Leonardo was not intending to portray this as a woman. Now, the art historians have to pretty much come into the subject and discuss why does that figure look like a woman, and they agreed that it is because of Leonardo's education. Leonardo assisted, he went to school at the Florentinian School of Arts, and if you look at paintings from artists that came out of that school, they had the tendency to depict young people in a very feminine way, with the long hair, very young looking. And I mean, John was one of the youngest of all the disciples, so that is why he's depicted like this. And so that is really why this figure looks like a woman, but in reality, it's not. It's John, the disciple John. And the other thing, the secret and the hidden message that you see in this painting comes from the space between them two, which is this right here. The shape that is formed between them, you see this V-shaped form, and this is what they say, this is why they resemble Mary Magdalene to the Holy Grail, because this shape is the shape of if you look at it, it's the shape of a cup, the shape of the Grail. So they resemble that, and apparently that's the message that Leonardo tried to put by putting them in this position with that V in the middle, and also this represents, it also has the shape of the female womb. You know, so that will also make reference to the bloodline, to the child that she was carrying. So apparently that is the hidden message that Leonardo tried to put in this painting. But of course none of that is true. Art historians have studied it, agreed on it, and looked at Leonardo's own notes. So as to what was the real meaning of this painting. So, like I said, if you have never studied this before, you have never been familiar with this, it's very easily to be misguided because it makes a lot of sense, and the evidence is kind of right there. So it is very, very, very dangerous. And now, the movie also involves crusades. And this is important because the Crusades, according to the movie, this is where they first find the sarcophagus of Mary Magdalene. Here you see the first 3 Crusades, which aren't really the ones that matter. There were 9 Crusades in total, but only the first 3 were the important ones and the successful ones in a way. And according to the Da Vinci Code, as you know, well, historically, the first Crusade ended in 1099 AD, and at the end of the First Crusade, 2 religious military orders were formed. The Knights Hospitallers were first, and the Knights Templars followed them a few years later. And the whole purpose of these religious orders was to protect pilgrims who wanted to visit the Holy Land, because the Muslims that were over there were harassing them, they were not letting them through, they were even attacking the pilgrims. So that was their sacred mission, to protect the pilgrims going to the Holy Land. And according to the movie, in the First Crusade, they went to Jerusalem, and the Knights Templar found secret vaults under the Temple of Solomon, and right there in those vaults, that's where they found the sarcophagus of Mary Magdalene, along with the Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail in here is referred as the documents that prove the bloodline. So they found that, according to the movie, and they took it back to Europe, and they pretty much became the guardians of the sarcophagus and the proof of the bloodline. So that is a theory that the movie puts. But of course it's not true. There's no evidence that the Knights Templars found anything in the Temple of Solomon. The temple was destroyed in the Crusades, actually, and I mean, there's just no evidence that they ever found anything like it. And pretty much that's what they did. They protected the pilgrims, and later on, with the centuries, they gained more power, political, military, and economic power. They became very wealthy, and actually that became the problem. Their power became pretty much their end, because they became so powerful that they were posing now a threat to the European monarchies and dynasties. So the thing that happened with the Templars was that the Pope at that time called the leaders of both the Templar orders and the Hospitallary orders, called them to Rome to talk about politics and discuss their religious purpose, because the Crusades ended in 1270 something AD, but the Templar Knights were still an active society even 100 years later. So clearly their purpose was done. The Crusades were no more. So if their only purpose was to protect pilgrims, then they should have probably disbanded after the Crusades were over. But they kept going on as active society. So the church believed that they were not serving their original purpose anymore, and that now it was all about money and power and wealth. So that's what the Pope wanted to talk about with them. And so we have that one of the most powerful kings at the time, Philip IV, the King of France, jumped into the scene. He was actually in debt with the Knights Templar who offered him his services and actually helped him. So he was in big debt with the Knights Templar, and according to the evidence that we have, that is the reason why he decided to get rid of them, because he really didn't like them that much, but most of all, he didn't want to repay that debt, because it was a pretty big debt. And it might sound contradictory, because they were pretty much the most powerful organization in Europe at that time, but he dared to do this because he knew that he was going to have the support of the church. Because the church did not agree with the Knights Templar and the Hospitallers' ideals of continuing their supposed tasks even after the Crusades. So in the movie they tell you about this with a little twist there, that it was all about the secret that they were protecting. But the historical thing that did happen was that on Friday the 13th, 1307, Philip IV issued an order throughout all of France that all the Templars should be arrested and executed, and the order was pretty much completed like clockwork. All the Templars were arrested, and they were either killed or burned alive, crucified, all sort of punishments. And I mean, in a way, that's in the later tales of the Knights Templar, actually that's why we get the Friday the 13th to be the day of bad luck. So that's what happened to the Templars. Here you have on the right, that is one of the depictions of a burning of the Templars. And also here you have the legend of the cursed kings, which I'm sure you've heard about, because before the last Templar was killed, he said that they have no right to do that to them, that they were the servants of Christ, and he cursed the 7 generations of King Philip IV. And I mean, I guess coincidentally, it did happen that 7 generations after King Philip IV really faced disgrace, like all sorts of disgrace. Like the women would commit adultery against their husbands, the child would be born with diseases, they would die very young, their kingdoms would fall apart. They just faced disgrace 7 generations after this. So choose to believe or not in that curse, but that's what historically happened. So moving on, and moving on to this, that's I guess that's it for the Templars, but they're very closely related also to the Arthurian legend, which I'm sure you've also heard about, King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table. And this is important because this is the first time in literature when you see the Holy Grail. Never before is the Grail mentioned. If you look in the Bible, there's not a single word that says anything about a Grail, or the Holy Grail as a cup and all that. There's nothing in the Bible that mentions it. This is from the Tales of Arthur that came out in the 11th or the 12th century AD, and this is pretty much where we get the whole quest for the Holy Grail. First time in history, and it was supposed to be because of the Grail having it would grant special blessings to the true knight who found it. So that is why King Arthur and his knights set out in a quest to look for it. So I mean, that is not really relevant to it. The relevant thing is that in the tales of the Arthurian legend, when they look for the Grail, it's always mentioned to be a cup, an actual cup, a vessel. It's never mentioned that they are looking for a sarcophagus or documents or anything to prove a plot. It's always looking for a cup. So there again, you have some evidence that the Holy Grail is not really any sarcophagus or vault behind there. It's always been a cup. And actually, this one you have on the left is a picture of what the Catholic Church has officially considered to be the real Holy Grail. It's in the Cathedral of Valencia in Spain. I mean, I really didn't go deep into it as to what the evidence is that this is the actual Holy Grail, but I do know that this is the one that the Church officially recognizes as the Holy Grail. And finally, about the Holy Grail, we get the whole thing, the whole concept of the Holy Grail, basically because of a game of words. And again, it's a very thin line, a very misleading concept that if you haven't really searched deep into it, it can misguide you. And here you have, this is your lead teaming from the movie. This is played by the British actor Ian McKellen, and he is the Royal British Historian, expert in the Holy Grail and the church history, and he's explaining to Sophie Nauvoo and Robert Langton why the Holy Grail refers to a bloodline and not a cup. So if you look, but here's the truth. The Holy Grail legend, sort of, was written in Old French, and the Holy Grail was written as the Saint Graal in Saint Graal. Saint Graal, as you know up there, you see it up there. Two separate words, Saint and then Graal. And then the Da Vinci Code interpretation is that the G goes to the first word. So now you have sang, which means blood, and Graal, which means royal. So the translation would be royal blood. So this is just a game of words. There's no evidence of this. Wherever you read about the Holy Grail, even in ancient languages, whatever language you look for it, you will never find that it's written in any of these two forms that the Da Vinci interpreted it. So this is just a game of words to pretty much support the idea that Holy Grail refers to a bloodline and not a cup. Just a game of words, very misleading too. And now the last of the big issues that concern the book and the whole plot is the Priory of Sign. This is supposed to be a secret society that is in charge of protecting the secret of the church. And the movie does explain how it works. There's supposed to be 4 grandmasters at all time. And actually, Jacques Senier, the guy from the beginning of the movie, was one of the grandmasters. And when I first read about this after I saw the movie, if you ever research it, it's pretty well based. It's actually, like, you will find a lot of evidence about it, but it turns out that it's all a hoax, and a pretty recent one too. What you see here this image is a list of supposedly the Grand Masters of the Priory of Sign all throughout history, and you have important names like, here you have Leonardo da Vinci here, you have Robert Boyle, Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo. So you have all these famous people that supposedly were Grand Masters of this secret society that kept the secret. alive and going on. But like I said, it's all a hoax that started here in Rennes-le-Château, which is a small town in the west of France. And it started because of that man. Well, he's not really the one behind the hoax, but he was pretty much the scapegoat that played the role of the priest. What happened is that this little village, this man was the priest of the church that is in Rennes-le-Château, and apparently he has a lot of money. Well, he did have a lot of money. And the legend, according to the legend, he got this money because he found not only money but also the documents under the church at this place in France. He found the documents that proved Jesus' bloodline, and so basically found the Holy Grail under the church. He made this public, and that's how he got his money, and he built all the city around the church and all that. So that's what the legend says. That's what the myth about the priory says. But the truth is that he got the money basically by committing fraud. What he did was that he promised to all the people in the town that he would give masses he would talk in favor of all his debt. He would give a mass for all the people that they've lost. So and of course he charged a little bit of money for that. So that's how he raised money. But the problem is that he raised more money than the hours he had to cover this. From what I researched, he committed to almost 40,000 masses. And of course, he would have never had time to do that, but still he got the money in advance. So that's how he became so wealthy, and that's how he was able to support this whole hoax. And of course, he got trial for it, and found guilty, of course. So the man behind everything was this man, Pierre Fontard. This is the guy. This is pretty much the mastermind of the whole prior sign hoax. And really, we didn't know why he decided to do it. Probably was because of just looking for fame, controversy, money. Because this is pretty recent, 1975. That's when the documents were first published. He came up with this idea of the prior sign thing in the 1950s. So it's less than a century ago that all this happened. This that you see here is a picture of one of the documents that he recreated. He pretty much worked with cryptographers, and they made these documents, and they made them seem like they were very old. And in the documents, they used this language to tell the story of that you see in the Da Vinci Code, basically, that the priory was a secret society that was guarding this secret. And that's what the documents say. Everything was found. They tested the documents. Of course, they showed that they were very recent. And he was arrested. He went to court, and under oath, he confessed that it was all he's doing was all a hoax. So there you go. I mean, if you study about the priory, there's a lot of evidence to support it, because he even got art involved. He somehow used 15th century Renaissance pictures and paintings to relate to his myth. He basically just he made up secret messages hidden in Renaissance paintings that would fit his story. It was also pretty real, but once you look into it, it was all a hoax, and he confessed it barely 40 years ago. So I mean that's it for the main line of the movie. That's pretty much all it covers, the whole Holy Grail and bloodline thing. So I just want to give you some of the things that go around it that you also see in the movie that might also be confusing. And I mean, some of these are very interesting to know. For example, you see the Council of Nicaea. This is, according to the movie, this is where they decided whether Jesus was divine or mortal. According to the movie, one day Jesus was mortal, the day after the council Jesus was divine. And that is not true at all. According to the movie, they voted on it, and it was a very close vote between those who were in favor and against, and in the end those in favor won, and so officially Jesus was declared divine. So of course that is not true. The Council of Nicaea did exist. It was summoned by the Emperor Constantine in 325 AD, but the main issue of the council was not to discuss Jesus' divinity. It was to discuss what was the relationship between Jesus and God. what did it really mean that Jesus was related to God, and that's the whole thing that they voted on, because there were mainly two different positions. The first one was the doctrine that had been around for 300 years, that you have the Holy Trinity, where you have when God is the same as Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. You have the Trinity doctrine on one side, and the other one was proposed by a man named Arian, who proposed that that it was not the same person, that there were different levels, that you had God at the top, Jesus next to him, and at the bottom the Holy Spirit. So those were the two that they voted on, and it wasn't a close vote at all. I think it was 350 to 4, something like that. So I mean, it was nothing like close votes. And so to settle this down in pretty much in words, the Council of Nicaea created the creed. The creed that we still have today, it was conceived here at the Council of Nicaea, and it basically reaffirmed the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. So that's really what the Council of Nicaea did. Now, some of the architecture, I just want to show it to you. This is the Rosslyn Chapel, which you see at the end of the movie. This one is in Scotland, in the city of Rosslyn. And supposedly in the movie, this is where the sarcophagus and documents that prove the bloodline were buried at some point, because in the movie they go here, they go down to the vaults, they don't find anything. So they were once there, but they're not there anymore, according to the movie. And I mean, this is of course it still exists. You can visit it today, and from what I've read, it gets a lot of visitors a year, more than it used to, and half of them come with a copy of the Da Vinci Code with them, and they go to the front with the priest, and they're like, show me where this happened, where is this? And then the priest just goes like, no, she just goes like, no, son, that is just a lie. None of that is here. Nothing of that isn't that novel happened here. So don't expect me to show you anything. And they just turn around, they nod their heads, and they're like, I know what you're trying to hide. Like they knew the secret. So this is one of the churches that you see in the movie. The other one is the Church of Saint-Sulpice. This one is in Paris, and this is where supposedly the sarcophagus was hidden. And the monk Silas goes here, and he supposedly finds it. Well, he doesn't find it. He finds a stone with a site from the Bible, Job 38:11, I think it is. So this is also in Paris. You can go visit it. And an important thing that you have to know is that the medallions, they're called the Arago medallions. Arago was the name of the company that made them, and they were basically used. There are 137 of them along Paris, and they were put across a line that is known as the Paris Meridian, which served as the first meridian of the world. That it was pretty much a competition to the Greenwich Meridian that goes through London. So it was just a competition between the Greenwich Meridian and the Paris Meridian. So, but this actually doesn't go through this church like it's shown in the movie. The line, the Paris Meridian, or it's also known as the Rose Line, it goes through it's like I think like 100 meters east of the church. So it doesn't go through it like it's shown in the movie. So if you ever go to Paris and find these medallions on the ground, well, that's what they mean. They're the line that served as the prime meridian of the world back in the Renaissance times. Now, also I want to tell you, the Vatican, it's mentioned a whole lot in the movie when they talk about the church trying to get rid of the evidence of the bloodline and all that. They always refer to the Vatican. And the fact is that the Vatican wasn't around for like 1,000 years after the events that they are describing happened. It was not until the 15th century that the Vatican became pretty much the headquarters of the Catholic Church. Before that, it was pretty much scattered all over Europe. And one example is there on the right, in Avignon in France. That is the palace of the popes in Avignon, and that is where 7 of the popes lived when the Western and the Eastern churches broke up. And so that is one thing you have to know, that the Vatican was not around the times of the whole, let's say, of the whole theory of of the sarcophagus and all that. And also, in the movie, they refer to this one as the Cathedral of St. Peter, but it's not a cathedral, it's a church, the second biggest church in the world. Also, they mention the Inquisition, and they mention it in the movie Beethoven, when he's explaining all the Grail legend to Sophie Nabu. He brings up the Inquisition, and he says that over 5 million women were killed because of they were found guilty of heresy, and they were witches, pretty much. And the Inquisition just killed all of them. But he relates Inquisition to be the Church's fault, and for that he supports that with this book, the Malleus Maleficarum by Kramer and Spencer. Those are the authors, and he said, well, the translation of this is the Witch's Hammer. That's the translation of the name. And this book was pretty much, I mean, you can still find it today. I think Google has it has an electronic version of it if you want to look at it. And it was basically a guide to identify and torture witches. And according to the movie, this is the book that the church used to hunt down all these women, all free-thinking women, all these witches, and pretty much kill them, burn them, torture them. But that is not true. The book does exist, but first of all, the church rejected it because it was a very sexual approach to it. And, I mean, I don't have any more pictures of it, but if you ever look at it, it's all about sexual. It's just a sexual theme around it, and that's how they used to identify the witches. Like, I remember the first pages, they say that one way to identify the witch is when they're dancing naked around the fire, and if they're dancing backwards, then they're witches, and stuff like that. You know, just like the ways to identify witches, and so the church and the academic world rejected this book. Actually, the only ones who used it were some secular judges, but they used basically guidelines. This book was never followed rigorously as a tool to identify and hunt witches. And actually, the church wasn't the one that was directly related to all this hunting. It was actually the state. You know, of course, the church had something to do with it, but it was actually the state that condemned all these free-thinking women. And of course, the number 5 million is exaggerated. According to the records, it was between 40 and 60,000 people that were burned by the Inquisition, and still a pretty big number, but nothing compared to 5 million. And out of those 40 or 60,000, 20% were males, so it was not only women.
And when was this book published?
This book, I don't know, I might have a date here. That's
around the time of the Inquisition?
Yeah, the date is right here, actually. This is 1600 and 69. Kramer and Spencer, they were German. They were both German. They were pretty much committed to. They wrote
it in Latin.
Yeah. They were committed to do this book, and
they must have been priests when they.
Okay, so I mean that's it for the movie. But I want to before I finish this, I just want to pretty much reflect not only on this movie but all the ones that we've made that I've shown you. And I think that I'm not only I want to show you the errors, because if you're not really interested in this, you probably forget them. But the things that I really want you to take with you are the lessons that we can learn from these movies. And the first one is the one that I've been mentioning since my first presentation: the power of movies and literature to communicate. Like I said, movies are the most powerful means of communication, and anything that is powerful is also dangerous. So that is why this was like my little contribution to this. Also, the importance of symbols and images in our culture. I mean, they're everywhere. Like you saw paintings from all the way back to the Renaissance. You see symbols from even Egyptian times, 5,000 years ago, and even you have them today. Your dollar bill, you have all the symbols. Whether they're conspiracy theories or not, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that you have symbols still present and are all around us. And the importance of historical research and understanding. I can't stress this enough. It's just so important to use use the academic sources, and finally they need to read and think critically. And I know this is something Dr. Garrett Baines really stresses on. Let the facts aside, and you can always find them wherever you need them. But it's all about reading and thinking critically. That's what history really is about. And I mean, there's no denial that in order to understand our present, we need to know our past. Now, I wanted to tell you about the Da Vinci Code. Like I said, the success that it had. And first of all, these are the 4 things that I consider. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot more, but this is the most important that I consider to be the reason for their success. Like I said, it's a very well-written novel. Even if it doesn't matter if it does matter if it's true or not. But despite anything, I think this is the credit that we have to give to Dan Brown, that he pretty much knows how to write a novel. We have to acknowledge that he did a great job of bringing together all these elements to create this very good novel. And I mean, it's really fun to read. The movie is very interesting to watch, and it'll get you thinking. So that's something that we do have to recognize, and that's part of its success. And also the second one is controversy, which equals sales. And like I said, that is the reason why I think this movie was so successful, because we also have this cliche phrase that says everybody likes a good conspiracy theory, and that's true because of the way this movie is presented and the book is presented. And you see it in his works. The other works that he did, like he has that other one that they made the movie about, angels and demons. Nobody ever talks about angels and demons because you straight know that it's a lie. If a bomb had exploded in the Vatican, the whole world would know by now. It's just the kind of movie that you can immediately tell that it's a lie, that there are no facts in it. But with the Da Vinci Code, it doesn't happen like that. And I'm going to actually show you some of the stuff that Dan Brown said in some interviews. And the third one says facts versus legend and the myth line. This is what I like to. This is one of the most important ones that I think are the reason for the success, is that there is a very thin line between the facts and the legend. It's not like I said. It's not like an explosion in the Vatican that would have found out. It's the very little details, like I said, the ones that I showed you. It was written in Coptic, not Aramaic. It was the Holy Grail was the word. It was just a matter of putting the G in the second word or the first word. Very small details that make the whole difference. So that is why I think this theory, this whole conspiracy theory, was so successful, because I actually think, and I know people whose faith was shaken because of this. They see this and they're like, it might be true. There might be a secret that the church has been hiding from us, and now they claim to know it because they saw the movie. And the last one is ignorance, of course. And I think those images speak for themselves, especially the one on the right. Your ignorance is their power. And I think that's something that we all have to really put attention to. And because just like ignorance is their power, knowledge is our power. So that is something that I would like you to take with you. The fact that you don't have to not always. I mean, I wouldn't even say not always. I would say never straight ahead believe everything you see, everything you read, or everything you hear, without making your own judgment of it based on pretty much, I would say, research or analysis, or just think over it for a good while. So this is some of the interviews that he has only given, like 2 or 3 interviews since the book was published. And actually, I got this from his own website. And he had the question that says, when we talk about Da Vinci in your book, how much is true and how much is fabricated in your storyline? He says 99% of it is true. All of the architecture, the art, the secret rituals, the history, all of that is true in the Gnostic Gospels. Now the question says, how much of this is based on reality in terms of things that actually occurred? Absolutely all of it. Obviously, there are Robert Langdon is fictional, but all of the art, architecture, secret rituals, secret societies, all of that is historical fact. I just showed you that it is not, and even then he still claims this. Now, the question as of whether the question that I made to you at the beginning of the presentation, we don't know if he believes these or not, if he truly thinks that this is a real conspiracy theory. Probably not. Like I said, he made a controversy out of the controversy, because of course if he comes out saying, yeah, I mean it's a great novel, but it's all fake, you know, it will create some controversy. But if he claims that it's true, then it's going to create even more controversy, and that just translates into more sales and more, you know, just more fuss about the whole thing. So that is my conclusion on him. I think it's just all about the money, the sales, and the fame. I really don't think that he believes it, because there is overwhelming evidence that his theory is wrong, and it's not even his. Like you saw, he got most of those ideas from other people. So this is my final conclusion, not only for this movie, but for the whole presentation, all the three of them. So this is the quote that I want to end with. So thank you very much. That's
great. Do you have any questions for him? Because he might be totally making all this up. You want to stick with the conspiracy theory, don't you?
No, I don't necessarily believe in a conspiracy theory, but the door that was made onto the Last Supper, the painting of the Last Supper, was made after the painting was finished. But it wasn't made by Leonardo da Vinci.
No.
In fact, they don't have any actual documentation of who created the door or why. Although it is like a direct correlation to the name.
I mean, that is the reason I actually looked at it. Yeah, I mean,
because he always intended to show Jesus' feet. Like and originally, you saw Jesus' feet in the painting.
It was not Leonardo, that's for sure. I mean, like I said, he painted it, and then he was moved to the church, and it hangs there. That's why it looks like it's a mural, but not. It's actually a canvas painting. And yeah, the doorway was added years later, and from what I researched, that is the reason why the main priest basically just wanted a direct passage through the church, so they just put it through the painting. Very stupid.
You guys have a question? Good. That was great. Good work. Excellent job. That was enjoyable. So everybody knows, though, that folk tales are the best source for historical research, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
They're all absolute facts.
There you go.
They've never been changed.
Nope. So then what is the best source for historical research?
Archaeological evidence.
That's always right. Is that right? Archaeological evidence, always completely factual, and you can take it to the bank. Say it again? Anything written in a book should be fact, right? That's all correct. How about... Really? It comes down to what you believe in? So nothing is ever can be proved to be true.
Evidence can be supported.
By what?
By evidence.
By other evidence. So that's the idea. Never take one source for anything. Very good. Excellent. Be a great history professor one day. We already are. Of course, you could have made all this stuff right up. We have no idea what his sources are.